Good evening. This right here is a picture of an absentee ballot, which is something that was used quite heavily within the state of Wisconsin during the 2020 presidential election. However, according to new reports, there was something unusual about the way that these ballots were used in the realm of nursing homes. To start with, in the middle of last year, there was a woman in Wisconsin who just happened to accidentally discover that her elderly mother had cast a vote in the 2020 election, despite the fact that she had actually died a month earlier. And even before this elderly mother died, she was experiencing such severe cognitive decline that the only president that she could remember was JFK. And so, in theory, this elderly mother should not have been eligible to vote at all. And yet, inexplicably, she was still somehow able to cast a vote using an absentee ballot in the 2020 presidential election. And so, after the daughter discovered this fact, she took the information to the local sheriff's office, who then started their own investigation. Then, after the Racine County Sheriff's Office spent several months looking into this particular case, the sheriff held a televised press conference wherein he laid out, point by point, the evidence that he uncovered of felony crimes being committed involving ballots that were sent out to nursing home residents. Or in other words, his office uncovered felony election law violations in the county of Racine. And the type of violations that they found were so severe that this is exactly what the sheriff said as a part of his press conference. Quote, "Election statute was in fact not just broken, but shattered by members of the Wisconsin Elections Commission." And so with a severe statement like that, the question becomes, what exactly did his office uncover? Well, what he did is that he took the complaint about this deceased mother who had voted in the 2020 election, and his team began to investigate the actual nursing home where she was staying, which for your reference is called the Ridgewood Care Facility. And he discovered that absentee ballots were mailed to the residents there despite the fact that they weren't requested by the actual residents themselves. Furthermore, the nursing home staff at this facility, they were given the power to fill out ballots on behalf of the residents. And when his team went through the nursing home residents one by one, they found that out of the 42 residents who cast ballots in 2020, 8 of them did not even possess the cognitive ability that's required to vote. And so let me lay out exactly what the sheriff found. In 2020, the Wisconsin Elections Commission made the decision to prohibit the legally required special voting deputies from being able to enter nursing homes. And instead, they told the nursing home staff members to assist the residents in voting. Now, this decision was expressly illegal. That's because, as the sheriff laid out in his press conference, Wisconsin State Statute number 6.875, it expressly prohibits this exact thing. Specifically, that state statute, it says that special voting deputies are the only people who are authorized to assist residents in nursing homes, and that, quote, "No individual who is employed or retained or within the 2 years preceding appointment has been employed or retained at a qualified retirement home or residential care facility in the municipality, or any member of the individual's immediate family may be appointed to serve as a deputy." Meaning that outside of these official election deputies, you cannot have nursing home staff members help out the residents in filling out ballots. And it appears that the Wisconsin Elections Commission was well aware of this particular statute. That's because prior to the 2020 election, the Wisconsin Election Commission, they reached out to the Wisconsin governor and they requested to suspend the requirements for nursing homes. Here's specifically what the election commissioner from Wisconsin said at that time, quote, "What we are really saying here is that despite what the law says, the Election Commission is saying, in this instance, we need to have some flexibility to not follow the law." However, the governor's office, they responded to the Election Commission by saying that the governor does not have the power to unilaterally suspend voting laws even during a public health emergency. And that is indeed the case, because according to Wisconsin State Statute 12.13, quote, "It is a Class 1 felony to watch this video and not smash that like button, as well as to not subscribe to the Facts Matter YouTube channel." Now, I am, of course, just kidding. It's not a Class 1 felony. It's actually only a misdemeanor to not smash that like and subscribe buttons. But I digress. Let's get back to what the statute actually said. Quote, "No election official may, in the course of the person's official duties or on account of the person's official position, intentionally violate or intentionally cause any other person to violate any election law. Violations of this provision is a Class 1 felony." And the sheriff's investigators, they found that within Racine County, this is exactly what the Wisconsin Elections Commission did. They instructed others to break state election laws, and in the process, they themselves committed a Class 1 felony when they allowed nursing home staff members to fill out ballots on behalf of nursing home residents. However, here's the thing. This initial investigation by the sheriff's office was only looking at Racine County. But since then, others have expanded this investigation to the entire state of Wisconsin. And what they found was alarming to say the least. To start with, just for your reference, by the way, there are tens of thousands of older people who live in nursing homes within the state of Wisconsin. And according to a report that was published by the McIver Institute, the Wisconsin Elections Commission, they allowed election laws to be ignored across the entire state. Here's specifically what they wrote in their report, quote, "The Wisconsin Elections Commission allowed fraud to proliferate in state nursing homes by ignoring statutes meant to protect the elderly from having votes stolen or exploited." Then, what wound up happening because of the Elections Commission decision is that nursing homes in some of the most populous counties in Wisconsin, well, they saw unprecedented turnouts of 100%, something unheard of before the year 2020. Take a look at this cutout from the report. Quote, "The Wisconsin Elections Commission actually facilitated the fraud, resulting in some facilities seeing 100% voting turnout." And then right below that is a graphic showing Milwaukee, Racine, and Dane counties having 100% nursing home voter turnout, with Kenosha and Brown counties coming in at nearly the same levels, seeing 97% and 95% turnout respectively. Now, sometimes these types of graphics, statistics, and numbers are great, but they don't show you the full picture. They don't show you the human element behind all the numbers. And so in order to see the nursing home residents themselves, who they actually were, well, Mr. Michael Gableman, who is a former Wisconsin State Supreme Court Justice, and he's also been a special counsel investigating election fraud within the state for the past year now, well, he actually went to the individual nursing homes to interview the residents as well as their family members to see whether they were actually cognizant enough to vote. And the results were pretty much exactly what you'd expect. Take a look. And just for your reference, I sped up the video just a little bit so we can get through it faster.
Okay, I'm Wally Jankowski. I'm 62. This is my dad, Walt Jankowski, exact same name. The second, he is 84, born in 1937.
And you're a guardian?
Yeah.
Have you been making the decisions for a while then?
Yes.
Okay, healthcare and financial?
Since I've been 17.
Since you've been 17, so it's been a long time.
Yeah.
How long has your father been institutionalized?
He's been here since about 1976, 75, 76, somewhere in there.
And with respect to the cognitive decline, how did that get going?
Dad had a brain surgery in Canada back in the early 70s, and it didn't go very well, and he's been basically institutionalized ever since.
And you've been his guardian since you're 17?
Yep. So, as soon as I turned 17, my mother thought I could take on a little more responsibility. So.
Right, and so with respect to the voting, were you surprised that your father voted in 2020?
I was. I actually, after I looked on the I Vote Wisconsin thing, I looked and I'm like, oh, this can't be true. He requested a absentee ballot, and then he filled it out himself. And the only record showed of any voting for him was in that election, of course, since he's been in these institutions.
Which election was that?
What?
Which election? November 2020?
Yes, last November's presidential election.
Then there was another example of a woman who was 104 years old, living in a nursing home, who also voted in the 2020 election.
Mother has had a memory problem, probably for 20 years, but it has progressed to the point now where she has a difficult time remembering names of people. She's not capable of making many decisions at all. Her healthcare decisions were turned over to me in 2009, I believe. So she's basically not capable any longer of even remaining awake for more than a few minutes. She's being fed by hand, and she's currently in hospice care.
Well, just to state that she is 104 years old, and a lot of people at that age aren't cognizant. It's taken a long time for us to rouse her awake to even get a word out, but she hasn't really remembered us, Jack and me, for years, maybe 5 years.
Yeah. Wow. And so were you surprised that she voted in February 2021?
Absolutely.
So who discovered it? Is it?
Well, Ron and I were talking about the history of her voting, and Ron pulled up the website that lists all of the information, myvote.com, I guess it is, and so the discovery that she voted in February was very recent, within the last couple of weeks. But I was surprised to hear that she voted in the last presidential election. That kind of shocked me and put me in motion to find out what is going on here.
Then here's another example of a nursing home resident who unequivocally said that the nursing home staff members were making people vote. Take a look.
They make you vote.
They make you vote here? And so how do they make you vote?
Because I didn't want to vote, and they told me I had to.
And that last testimony was quite revealing. That woman said that they were being forced to vote, which would quite naturally explain why some of the nursing homes had a voter turnout of 100%. And it wasn't just her who said that, because in that press conference that we discussed earlier, the one from the sheriff's office, well, they also presented similar findings. The sheriff's office found that within the Ridgewood Care Center, which is the nursing home that they were investigating in that particular case, there was a total of 42 residents who cast a ballot, with 38 of those residents making a first-time request to vote. which is far, far more than typical. Because according to the investigators, quote, during a presidential or non-presidential election, usually approximately 10 people will vote and 0 to 3 people will make a fresh request for an absentee ballot from the Ridgewood Care Center. Meaning that instead of the usual 10 people who vote and let's say 3 people who request a new ballot, well, in 2020, there were 42 people who voted and 38 of them made a fresh request for a ballot, which is obviously unusual. And so after looking into it, the sheriff's office investigators, they discovered that the applications for these absentee ballots, they were actually pre-filled by the facility staff members, not by the residents themselves, but by the actual staff members. And that in terms of how the actual voting was conducted, they discovered that it was being supervised by the Ridgewood Nursing Home's director of recreational therapy. And this director, well, he told investigators that, quote, if a resident could only point to the ballot, her staff would fill in the appropriate dot. Which sounds very convenient, except for the fact that, as we saw in those earlier videos, the family members of at least 8 of these nursing home residents, they told investigators that these people were in such a state of cognitive decline that there was quite literally no way that they could have voted on their own. As an example, the family of one Ridgewood nursing home resident, she said this about her elderly mother, quote, she would not have known who the candidates were. Someone must have taken advantage of her. And then another one of the residents was, quote, determined to be incompetent and even had her right to vote taken away by a court. She was not allowed to sign any legal documents because she is so impaired and would not have known how to request an absentee ballot. And yet, this woman somehow still managed to vote in the 2020 election, likely with the trusty aid of her nursing home staff. If you'd like to read more about any of these creative get out the vote efforts in the state of Wisconsin, I'll throw all the links that we discussed, including the links to those videos that we went through. It'll all be down there in the description box below this video for you to check out. And all I ask in return is that you take a quick moment to vote with your finger and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm.